First, I need to apologize to the gentleman behind the camera. When I got nervous, I started walking around. So you might have to do a little more work to track me down. And then here's why I'm nervous. The person who I took the first model development class is here. Okay? The person who learned dynamic system, introduced dynamic system to me is here. Okay? There are 3 people in this room have guided me through early career development to late career development. There's 3 of them here. And then a lot of you, I read your book, I read your paper as I'm growing up. So a lot of people here, that's what I would be when I'm growing up. So I'm a little nervous. And one of the things of reflects my nervousness is I prepared, I think, more than 150 slides. And then last time I practiced, I went to Carl. I said, Carl, I need to practice. I need to know, how to shape this talk. And then that talk won a little more than an hour. Now I have 20 minutes, right? Less. Okay? And then after hear Daniel last night and Bev and Daniel today, I was thinking about I probably need to redo this talk. So I got 15 minutes to redo the talk and present it. And then this is where I started. This is exactly verbatim what Carl said to me. And then this is my reaction. See, when Daniel was talking about cultural influence on evolution, you all got to remember, I came to this country when I was 30 years old. I don't have the cultural background you all have. I think Jane remembers all the questions I had in her class. I just don't have all the background. And then, so that's the answer Carl gave me. Okay, I took the hint. And then I was meeting with one of my friend and was talking about this, and this was on my mind, movement forms. Okay, I think you're all familiar with this old riddle. Okay, and then when we were little, we all talk about this, right? And then this is my understanding of change in movement forms throughout aging, right? And this is the answer to the riddle, right? So you crawl, you walk with some assistance, and then we're probably getting there, some of us, getting close, right? So that's my understanding. And I'm trying to test this understanding if that's broadly accepted. So I was asking one of my friends, she's 84 years old. I said, I was invited to go talk about change in movement form. How do you understand that? She thought about it. She says, here's my example. She says, I loved water skiing. I've water skied up to my 40 years. And then life got in the way. And I stopped water skiing for 20 years. By my 60 years birthday, I request my family, my birthday gift should be water ski. And her family fulfilled the request. She got her water ski. She get on there, she can't stand up. Right? So that's her understanding how aging with movement form changes. There's abrupt change with aging. There's some forms you could, some forms you couldn't. I would like to remind everybody, those kind of change may or may not happen at the same time for all of us, right? Some of us can sprint when we're young. Some of us can't even sprint when we're young. But some people can sprint, And I worked at Baton Rouge, Louisiana for 14 years. And there's a lady at 105, last month, 2 months ago, have just set the world record for women 100-meter dash, right? So there's people still sprinting, and some of us can't even run. So here's what my understanding of my task here is, in model development, there are a few what we call bifurcation in dynamic systems term, I'll get to that, throughout lifespan. Qualitative change is a movement forms emerging from accumulation of quantitative change that will change this point. And then it's my intention to argue that dynamic system approach provide ways for us to understand and how to manage those emergent movement forms. Okay? So I will start, give you a little bit my understanding of what's bifurcation, what is complexity, and I will go a little bit my understanding about neuroplasticity. Since the topic I can target is too big, which is typical of me, biting too much I can't chew. So I'll give you a little bit of my understanding of the topic, give a little bit examples of what we've been doing to illustrate my understanding of those points. And this is what I was introduced when I start dynamic systems. So basically you have this logistic map, you have a control parameter, this R in the equation, and you have order parameter to represent the attractors. Okay? To understand this map, okay, this line over here is the attractor, is where the system will stabilize out after generations. As the control parameter changes, the system behavior will change. And we all talk about this, and few people understand what we're talking about. All right, I'll give you one example. Let's say we fixate R at 2.5. Let's say we're on an island, an isolated environment. An island can maximally nourish about 1,000 population, let's say rabbits, right? And then if you put in some rabbits on the island, after a few generations, if the environmental constraint gave you 2.5, you're going to end up with 600 rabbits, more or less. Right? So that's where the attractor works. That's how the attractor works. Doesn't matter where you start. Eventually, you're going to settle somewhere over here. Okay? Of course, there's something we call bifurcation. Basically, if the control parameter changes, you may have one stable point as attractor. You may have two at where that change is what we call bifurcation. Right? And then, for some of us, doesn't work with this whole theory. This bifurcation, period doubling, and chaos, it's all mathematical jargons, right? I'll give you one example. This is my personal pet peeve. A few people in this room have worked with me on this for the last 20 years. I am just fascinated with gate transition, okay? And I'm going to use that as one example of bifurcation. For all of you, when you heard bifurcation that's induced headache, I give you a little example. Next time you find yourself in a gym, find yourself a treadmill. Set the treadmill at about 3.5 miles. Most of us can walk pretty comfortably at that speed, 3.5 miles, right? And then you change the speed into 5 miles per hour. Okay? For the majority of us, if you're walking on a treadmill at 5 miles per hour, you'll find yourself in a very hard predicament. If you walk, it's too fast. If you run, it's too slow. So what are you going to do? You're going to oscillate between walk and run. You're going to walk a few steps, and you're going to run a few steps. And then you're going to go back to walk a few steps, and you're going to run a few steps. And that's a perfect example of bifurcation using speed as a control parameter and using your gait as an order parameter. Okay? So that, I did not really invent that. I was in the vet school at LSU, I was watching this horse. And they just happened to put this horse on a big treadmill, set the speed. That poor little thing on the treadmill can't decide what to do. Gallop a few steps, run a few steps. Gallop a few steps, run a few steps. And I try myself, I do the same thing. Right? So that's a perfect example of bifurcation in human behavior, as we know. Of course, that's super simplified. a view of bifurcation. And this is the paper I got started on all those gate transition related research. Okay? The Aitken, Kelso, and Bunce, 1985. What I took from that, we implied to gate transition, is as you change the control parameter leading up to bifurcation, let's say this is your attractor state. This is where the stability is supposed to rely. As you change the speed, two things happens. What it says is called critical fluctuation. Basically, the variability gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And the second thing happens, a lot of people nowadays do not remember what second thing happens. It's called critical slowing down. If you perturb the system away from its stable state, it's going to take a longer and longer and longer time to go back to where it was, right? So the second piece of the puzzle is really important. You have to perturb the system in order to detect if the system is approaching the bifurcation point or not. Most of the people here, I see their bifurcation in the room. Half of you probably don't really care about what we're talking about here. Half of you, this is very rudimentary, very simple. Okay? So I'm going to skip that and give you one example of my own thought on this gate transition. I've been doing this for 20 years. A lot of people study gate transition are looking for what we call a collective parameter to represent the system. What happens when gate changes from walk to run, from run to walk. A few people are actually looking into the neural control, the motor behavior of the transitional event. And here is one of the papers we published not too long ago. What we did is we had people walking the treadmill from very slow speed. We gradually increased speed using speed as a control parameter. And then we artificially induced gait transition from walk to run. And then we recorded the first 5 steps before gait transition occurs. And then what we did is we record average speed of each of those 5 steps. And then we have people walk at those constant speed. Okay? So those constant speed is decided with changing speed at which each of the 5 steps occurs at that speed. We try to observe the behavior at a stable speed or at changing speed. And then we reverse that particular experiment. We have people run from a higher speed, we slow down the speed, the same concept. We slow it down, we record the 5 steps leading up to gait transition. We took the average speed of each of those speeds, and we have people run at those constant speed. We try to see there's a transitional behavior, or you can actually mimic the transitional behavior using stable state locomotion. So altogether we have 4 conditions. Okay? The basic hypothesis is if you want to study transition, you have to have a transitional behavior. You cannot have people walk or run at stable state, even though stable state is the same speed as the transitional speed. There's a lot of data. I really don't want to present all the data. I want to tell you what we actually find. This is a few different muscles we collected EMG. As we're leading for gait transition, this is gluteus maximus. This is that's tibialis anterior. That's gastrocnemius. That's rectus femoris. That's soleus. So the muscles, what I'm trying to say is we record the muscle from the hip joint, 2 joint muscles, 1 joint muscle, 2 joint muscle between knee and ankle, and 1 joint muscle and ankle joint. And inevitably, all of them, if you scale the speed, they all show transitional related behavior. If you have people walk or run at stable speed, there is no transitional behavior. Okay. I've been trying to argue this for the last 20 years. A lot of people study gait transition using stable speed in the vicinity of gate transition speed. I say that doesn't work. You have to use changing speed to induce transitional behavior. And I think there's reorganization trying to get us ready to prepare for gate transition. And the neuroplasticity, I understand, is a little bit different if you look at all different papers, you look at most of the publications. Most people talk about neuroplasticity confined in the central nervous system area. For the last 15 years, I have studied peripheral neuropathy, and we have found there's a lot of peripheral adaptation too. So I would like to insert the word peripheral into all the neuroplasticity related statements. The central and peripheral nervous systems adapt to whatever changes in environment, aging, and that's all. And this is the graph we saw 2 years ago, okay, at this conference. This is the Australian study, followed 45,000 women for physical activity, and look at decline of physical conditions at young age, less decline, middle age, more decline, older age, much faster decline. And then that was trying to verify the model put together by World Health Organization in 1997. It says our motor function develops in our young age and declines after a certain optimal point. And then what this paper was saying, that decline is not uniform, right? And then Carl and Morrison published a paper last year, put that particular statement into more complex context. And this first part of the picture is from Thielen's paper a long time ago. You recognize that, right? So Carl's argument is, if the increase of motor development at early age and we have a decline, can we mirror that process? Is that a reverse process? As the beginning of our years, our system was simple, getting more complex. At end the year of our age, would that more complex system become more simple? Right? Is that a reverse process? And I understand, that graph is too complicated for me. I understand it basically. Combine all those models like this. At the very beginning, our motor behavior complexity increases. At our adult age, it declines slowly. And at some point, there's bifurcation again, even accelerated decline. So when I saw this Carl's paper, it so happened we had a study that was Jeff Hadad's dissertation, and his mentors, his co-workers out here probably have seen this. And what he did is, he didn't do a 3 months baby, he didn't do a 9 months baby. He did 7 years and 10 years old baby. Basically, what the analysis showed, when baby trying to reach, when you constrain their trunk, right? Then there is the theory basically says, if you don't constrain their trunk, they try to reach with their whole body, right? And then that basic trend continues to about 7 years old. And then between 7 years old and 10 years old, something happens. People start being able to differentiate between arm reach and posture control. And use your posture control to compensate your arm reach. Right? So this, I know Jeff for a long time. So I know this study, and I was thinking, can I replicate this study in the other end of life? If babies, if those young people are learning how to differentiate between posture control and reaching movement, we will get to the older age where we recombine them to make the task simple. And furthermore, can we actually do something to intervene for that super simplification of our life? Okay? So this is their study, and not getting into all the technical details, but basically what they showed, this is the behavior of 7 years old, and this is behavior of 10 years old and adult. The conclusion is 10 years old is more like adult, 7 years old is not. So what we did, we copied Jeff's study, and we had older adults, 74 and older, and then we had, I like to do 3 points. They did 2 points, I like to do 3 points. 3 groups, 3 points. I try to see the word nonlinear is always in my mind. If I do 3 points, I might be able to find nonlinearity. If 2 points, I can't find it. So I always want to do 3 points. I got 3 group of people, I got 3 points. The past, people standing here, reaching for an opening, and the same with Jeff's study. One opening, your block is barely fit. And the next one is larger, the third one is largest. Right? And then the distance is about 1 arm, a little over 1 arm length. And then I find 3 group of people. One group of people secondary, trying to see if the secondary group will actually show the reintegration of trunk and arm. Okay. And people who exercise, who are more fit. One group is the brisk walking group, people very active, walking. And the other group is the traditional Tai Chi movement practice group. They do Tai Chi. Most of the people in our group have done Tai Chi for more than 15 years. A lot of them have done Tai Chi for 30 years. The hypothesis is, if at older age, we cannot differentiate between arm movement and posture control, and Tai Chi will actually is a practice for you to separate between arm movement and posture control. Would that actually help? Here's the results. With the secondary group, with a small opening, you have larger posture movement. Medium opening, posture movement reduces. Larger opening, posture movement reduces even more. Well, that basically says if you focus on your reaching motion, you focus on the feeding movement, your body moves a lot more. There's a coupling between those two movements. If you don't have it fixated on that feeding movement, you can actually control your center pressure movement, which shows if the task requires greater mental concentration, you will integrate both. You can't differentiate them. But if you look at the other group, the Tai Chi group, actually the trend is just the opposite. If you have smaller opening, you actually have much less center pressure movement. So you can actually coordinate your arm and your body much better when the task requires. When you have a little more freedom, you actually can use it. Right? So compare what we did with what Jeff did, Jeff's study. What we have found is, one, Carl's theory, the reverse, the reduction of complexity, we have data to support that. And two, that particular trend of reduction of complexity can be reduced if you can design a targeted exercise rehab program. Okay? That works. This is another study we have published last year. The perturbation in this is actually breathing. Okay. I don't know if all of you know, as we get older, your breathing becomes a perturbation of your posture control. Our evidence is if you stand there in the force plate, if you're recording center pressure movement, as people are getting older, you actually have a coupling between your breathing movement, breathing pattern, the rhythm, and your center pressure movement. And that too is coupled. You cannot differentiate them. And this study, we have about 800 people in Boston combined with Harvard University. Well, we have people practice Tai Chi for 24 weeks. And after the practice, we can actually find differentiation between breathing pattern and posture control. For the control group, that differentiation did not happen. So we have evidence, again, the complexity with the motor control system will reduce with aging, and that reduction can be reversed or maybe slowed down. Okay. And I think I got
You're doing all right.
I got too much, right? The next few slides is about locomotor systems while walking. I think I'll just go faster through that, a little less detail. Okay. The outlook exponents, it would take too much time to go through the details. So forget that. Come back here. Okay. So what we're saying is, as aging, if you look at the aging of time as control parameter, at a certain point we got to a bifurcation point. And in that bifurcation point, we can have ways to change the behavior of bifurcation. We can pick different paths for the bifurcation. We can actually postpone the bifurcation point to happen. The same way that I was talking about suggestions about change in movement form, she says you should present this. Okay. I went to graduate school in the Northeast, and I know Robert Frost not from points, from hiking trails. I hiked a lot of his trails in the Northeast. But this particular point, it illustrates the point of what I'm trying to talk about. As aging, we're going to come to some bifurcation point. And then we have a choice what to do, what not to do. I think I talked to all my students. The basic of kinesiology lies on the neuroplasticity. If our nervous system is not modifiable, there's no reason for us to do what we do. Right? We do what we do is because our behavior is modifiable. It's because we think we can find a way to modify the behavior to get us more healthy. Okay. So I will stop right here. Thank you very much.